But now there have been cases, especially in the famous case of a woman who died as a result of malpractice and uh, doctors now are facing criminal charges for not
Ah,
performing abortion.
ah.
So it's a big change as well.
Today we discuss the situation for women's rights and democracy in Poland. After elections that removed the Law and Justice Party, the far right, from government in 2023, but unfortunately maintained them in the presidency this past summer in 2025. Wanda Nowicka is a member of parliament, a long-standing feminist, and she will explain today what progressives and people fighting for the rule of law have been able to do in the last 2 years to maintain the flame in Poland. Hello, I'm Françoise Girard, and welcome to the Famous podcast. Today, I'm very honored to have on the podcast Wanda Nowicka, who is with us from Warsaw. Wanda is a member of parliament in Poland. She's a member of the Sejm, the lower chamber of parliament, from the left coalition, it needs to be specified. She was previously, in a previous parliament, the deputy speaker of the Sejm and is currently the founder and chair of the parliamentary group on women's rights, the chair of the Sejm Commission on national and ethnic minorities, and a member of the Polish delegation to the Council of Europe, which oversees democracy and the rule of law in Europe. She sits in the Council of Europe. She sits on the subcommittees on human rights, on gender equality, and on monitoring, election observation and monitoring. Wanda is a long-standing feminist. She's the founder of the Polish Federation for Women and Family Planning, the leading organization advancing sexual and reproductive health and rights in Poland. And she and I have to say, have known each other for 30 years, I think, because we were in many UN negotiations trying to advance women's rights and sexual and reproductive health and rights, usually with some success. So welcome, Wanda. I'm so pleased to have you on the podcast.
Hello, Françoise. It's lovely to see you and to talk to you as always. And I'm happy to be reconnect with you in your podcast.
Thank you so much. So when I last spoke to you, Wanda, the far right Law and Justice government had been defeated in October 2023 after 8 years of destructive rule, a very authoritarian and destructive rule. And you told me at the time, you were part of the new government, the center government, centrist government. And while governing was complicated because you were dealing with coalition politics in this government, still there was some hope that measures could be put forward to restore democracy in Poland and also to advance sexual and reproductive health and rights. Because, of course, the far right has used sexual and reproductive health and rights as one of their issues that they weaponized to mobilize their base. And this at the time was despite the fact that the presidency had remained in the hands of Law and Justice because the elections are not at the same time. And that allowed the presidency to veto anything passed by parliament. Now, unfortunately, the presidency of Poland did not go to the centrist bloc when the elections were held this past summer. The presidency remained in the hands of Law and Justice, and your new president is a man called Karol Nawrocki, who seems pretty awful by all accounts. But the elections were very close. I saw, very close, 50-49 or something like that. So it's really hard to think about that, what could have been. So let's start with that latest event. How do you explain, Wanda? Because you were hopeful that voters would come out in large numbers to defeat Law and Justice once and for all. How do you explain that voters did not mobilize the way they had 2 years earlier for the parliamentary elections and throw out law and justice, once and for all.
Yeah, you reminded me about this beautiful time, the day after elections, when we all hoped that these changes will happen soon and will happen all we expected to happen, and not only us as politicians or activists, but also as a society. It's good to remember that it was the elections where women came more than men. Participated more women in elections than men, so it was really quite successful, but also showed that women in Poland had a lot of expectations about new government and parliament to be.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that many of us, including my grouping, which is, as I would say, the most progressive one, the fact is that these changes are not happening as quickly as we would like to have. The main reasons for that, I would say, there are two. One is the fact that our coalition, which is quite diverse and quite strong in a way, we know that we have to be together. There are a lot of things which connect us. In the same time, there are some things which divide us. And such, for example, reproductive rights or LGBT rights. So that we have in our coalition a party coming from the rural background, which is more conservative than the rest of us. Nevertheless, it results in the fact that the law we were proposing in Parliament, like legal abortion or LGBT unions, still didn't happen because of that problem. But of course, this is something which we are working on, and we are negotiating with our coalition, and there are hopes that they might change their position in this regard. But the major barrier we really face, this is the fact that we lost the battle over presidency.
Yeah.
And this is a big, big loss. You would ask why. First of all, for some reasons, probably we would need sociologists. Liberals or progressives have no much chance, with one exception, to win presidential elections. Most of the elections were lost. It seems that there is something in the society I'm not going to explain. Nevertheless, for last of couple of elections, we had right-wing presidents. Some of them, they were not that bad, but the last ones, and especially the one who is now in charge, is really, really problematic for a variety of reasons. He's not. I think he's not delivering what people are expecting from him. Some of the statements he makes are very close, not only to nationalism but also to fascism, I would say. He has very poor, or if at all, political background. It shows that he doesn't know what it means. He doesn't know what does it mean to be in politics. There are things that should connect us. There are things we should be negotiating together. He cannot just be saying and doing no to everything. Actually, he's the president who, during his 4 months, already vetoed almost 20 very important
Laws.
legislation.
Ah.
So that as you compare with other presidents, they were less. One president had 10 vetoes over his 5 years terms or something. So it's not that popular. That one really wants to show and to really have more power, to take more power that he really is expected to have. So that's a problem, because we know that even if we pass certain legislation via parliament, like it happened on some occasions, he will most probably veto them. So that's very unfortunate if you take into account that he just started, so he has
Yeah.
5 years to be in charge.
My
So
goodness.
that's difficult.
Yeah.
So unless the society at some point will say no, because people do not like this war, internal war, all the time, since we have to face with also external wars, like a war over Ukraine by Russia. So this is terrible thing, very important also factor which has an impact on policies in Poland. So that situation is very complicated. It's not easy. And maybe one more thing I would say is responding why. One is, I would say, objective factor. The other one, also, I must say that there has been a disappointment among people, including or specifically women, who were hoping that going to parliamentary elections in 2023 will immediately change the situation. And since it didn't happen for a variety of reasons, I said, the disappointment made some people stay at home during the presidential elections, unfortunately, I would say.
Yeah, so that's what you observe, the people just not coming to vote, not the same turnout as you had in 2023, right? Yeah. Oh, dear. But you still had 2 years with the previous president, Duda, who was also from Law and Justice, but somewhat knew a little bit better what it is to govern, like you shouldn't veto everything. So what were you able to do in the 2 years you were with that previous president in terms of, as a government, in terms of restoring democracy? I mean, last time we spoke, you talked about the Constitutional Tribunal, which has been such a problem. And there was also the state media, which had been taken over by Law and Justice and basically was a government mouthpiece. What have you been able to do, nevertheless, in the 2 years since 2023?
Okay, actually, this is very busy time for all of us in the coalition, because despite the fact that it is hard to implement the law once accepted by the parliament, we work on the legislation, and there has been a number of laws which have been passed, which basically have to do with rule of law, restoring institutions, but of course they are still were not passed. Nevertheless, it is important to be ready, and I have this model that should be accepted once the conditions would allow. So to know how to change this very complicated situation, because the destruction of Polish law system is so deep. So it's not that you can change it overnight.
Right.
And also, it's not easy to make it. So I think there are a lot of things that are ready. But then, as far as women's rights are concerned, especially reproductive rights, although we haven't been able to pass the law, nevertheless, the practice of the law has changed. So, for example, the law is not being interpreted in such a repressive way.
The abortion law, you mean, right?
yeah, I'm talking about the anti-abortion law. Then it has been so before, so that's important, and there are example of that, like famous now Dr. Gisela Jagielska,
Hmm.
who performed abortion at the very late stage of pregnancy, which under former government certainly would be criminalized.
Hmm.
In this case, the decision makers, the prosecutor office, decided that there is no criminal in this in performing abortion because, of course, this pregnancy couldn't continue.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that happens. Happens. That interpretation of the law is according to medical
Hmm.
standards, and it's not at least to, I would say, to some degree, or to important degree. We of course don't know all the cases, so that shows that some things can be achieved even under this legal context. That's one thing.
But
Second thing that
Wanda, so that's because under the law currently, abortion is severely criminalized, including for fetal impairment. But since you weren't able to pass a law, was the Ministry of Health able to adopt some regulations to clarify this for doctors so that they would actually
there have
help women? I mean, how was it? You don't just
yeah.
change the atmosphere so that people change their behavior.
Yeah, actually, one important indication for abortion that fortunately hasn't been changed even under law and justice rule, anti-women rule, was the fact that to protect women's life.
Hmm.
So if the pregnancy women's health, actually life, that's of course that's obvious, but to protect women's
Health
health. So in the case of very serious um, uh,
complications.
cases, abortion cases and
Hmm.
complications, which are risky for women, for women's health, physical health, that now it is a reality that it is taken into account by the court, but also what is very important, also mental health.
Ah.
So now increasingly, of course that depends on the court, on the case, but definitely in the case of of the abortion performed by Dr. Jagielska, that was the case. That was a big risk of mental health impairment in case she would have to continue this pregnancy, which was completely
Doomed.
impossible
Yeah.
to survive.
Yeah.
So, so that's important, and because that has impact on the situation of very complicated situations of women,
Mm.
but also what is important is the fact that now doctors who are not friends of Polish women in majority, that's unfortunately I've been dealing this with dozens of years, and I know I'm really meaning what I'm saying. But they always have been using the argument by when they have not performed abortion that they can go to prison for performing abortion, which of course is not true if they comply with the law.
Hmm.
But they use this argument that no abortion ever in Poland is legal,
Yeah.
and because of that they haven't performed it. But now there have been cases, especially in the famous case of a woman who died as a result of malpractice and uh, doctors now are facing criminal charges for not
Ah.
performing abortion.
Ah.
So it's a big change as well. So if doctors are so scary. They should be now afraid not only to perform abortion, but also not when they don't perform abortion, when they should do it. So, of course, it's not ideal. It's not what we would like to get, but practice of the law is definitely now much more open to
Flexible.
women's needs.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
yes.
is that because the Ministry of Justice or the Ministry of Health issued clarifications?
Yes, well, definitely these all these regulations that have been or interpretation of the law that have been prepared and by the prosecutor and by health minister, they do matter. That's for sure. But I think that the most important factor is the fact that malpractice can also can have impact on their situation. So they might have face charges for not
For not
performing,
providing care.
not providing care. Yes, so that's a big change, and we didn't have it for a long time.
And when we spoke a while back, you were saying you were hopeful to, if not on abortion, to be able to advance other things like emergency contraception, over the counter, sexuality education in schools. Has this been done in the last couple of years?
Emergency contraception, I think it's accessible. We don't hear much about it, which for me is sign that that's good. If we hear that there are problems with that, probably it would mean that there is a problem with that. So I think that it is accessible. So that's at least to reasonable extent. I don't want to say 100%,
Everywhere, yeah.
but yeah, but it is accessible. And then you ask about sexuality education.
In schools, yeah.
At schools, yes. And actually, here we had an attempt to strengthen this sexuality education by the new law regulating school programs.
Yeah.
Uh, what happened with this very legislation is the fact that the minister of education, in the last moment, under the pressure of some conservatives, she decided not to make this sexuality education obligatory.
No.
Which means that many parents are not sending children to those sexuality classes. Of course, it is a big mistake and disappointment, and it should be done like
Yes.
this is obligatory, no discussion about. But now when it is in the hands of course it was under pressure of the Roman Catholic Church. Of course, immediately when they saw it, they started to push that this is dreadful, the same story we know for 30 years or so. So that happened. So so under this pressure, they decided, oh, maybe it's not a bad idea to give parents the right to decide. But we know what are the consequences. It means that those children that are most the ones who should have sexuality education, because they are not going to get it at home,
Right.
they are not going to get it at
At
school
all.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and at home either, because these are the people who, for some reasons, don't believe in sexuality education as an important element of children and adolescent education, which we strongly believe, of course. So that's, but hopefully that maybe next year we will be able to change and to make it obligatory, or we will see. But this is something which still is on the plate.
Ongoing battle. And then getting back to abortion, you had two in Parliament, two draft bills. Like there was one I mean, they're visionary bills. Obviously, they haven't been passed. One of them was to make abortion available on demand in the first 12 weeks of pregnancy, you told me. And the other one was to decriminalize abortion so that doctors no longer fear prosecution for performing abortion to save the life and health of women. And those are still there, right? They're still in the commission, but not moving anywhere, right?
They are still there. They are waiting. One of the reasons why they were not put forward was the fact which I mentioned in the beginning, this internal
Within the coalition
problem
itself.
within the coalition, because this party, this conservative party, has enough votes. If they don't support, then the law doesn't pass. So that's as you know, in democratic society, numbers always win. You have to have certain amount of numbers in parliament to have it through. So that's one thing, but also there was this hope, I must say, that maybe we will have a president, and then the situation would be much different.
Very different.
That is very, very different.
It's unfortunately not what happened.
Not the case.
Now, when you describe this change in terms of prosecutions for doctors who deny care to women who need, abortion care to save their lives and health, which has opened up a little bit of a window. Then we have the situation of Dr. Jagielska, who you mentioned, who provided that abortion to preserve the health of a woman. And then, I mean, it became quite an incredible story, because you had a former member of parliament who went to the hospital and tried to arrest the doctor, right? I mean, this man called Grzegorz Brown who ran to the hospital to try to arrest her. I mean, I was really shocked by that, because of course it's a shocking event in its own right, but it's also clearly an attempt to keep intimidating doctors. Like, the minute there's a little bit of an opening of a doctor doing the right thing, let's try to arrest her, let's try to intimidate her. It's very scary,
It is scary, because Grzegorz Braun, he is not only a former MP of Polish Parliament, now he's a member of the European Parliament.
Oh.
Okay, and the support for his crazy and dreadful ideas is growing in the society. Like, I would say, it's the phenomenon not only Polish, in many societies, including yours.
Yes.
yours.
US,
You have also some people with crazy ideas, and for some reasons they attract attention and support of other people, and this is really scary. That if he were the only one, that we would live with that.
Yeah.
But if he support, and he was now running for president also in those elections, Mr. Brown, and he made the third result in election.
No.
Third or fourth, I think, but could be third, maybe fourth. I'm not sure.
But surprisingly well,
high.
Right.
Very well, and his numbers, support for his ideas are growing, and he's not only not only fascist ideas, but also you heard about his denying Holocaust.
Yeah.
And this is dreadful, and this violence, and he attack that he made on Dr. Jagielska. He went to hospital and stopped her for performing her duty. It's dreadful, and for some reasons, not much can be done with him, because he is MP. He has immunity, and already the European Parliament is taking away his immunity for all these cases he've done, even probably in the case of, I'm not sure if the case of Dr. Jagielska has been considered by the European Parliament, but it is happening. So so he has a number of cases pending because of his wrongdoings and his attacks. He's violent. He attacked in Parliament 2 years ago. He attacked during the Hanukkah. He attacked a woman who was performing this. Um, the celebration. It's really scary, but what can I tell you? It's
Yeah.
when when he was in the Polish Parliament, he has immunity, so the guards were afraid to touch him,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
this the European Parliament. So
Yeah.
the problem is. It's not solved, but the problem, the big, but still, the biggest problem is that he finds supporters,
Mm-hmm.
and it means that he certainly will run for parliament, for national parliament, unless he's finally convicted of
Yeah.
some things. But you never know what will happen. So he may run. So he will run for parliament, and he has a quite now. It's about close to 10% support. He has now the support of the 10% of the population.
Wow.
So if he gets to parliament, then he will be very attractive partner for law and justice. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
well, I don't want
Exaggerate,
to
but
paint those
yeah, but
the
in
paint
no, but
black
what's
pictures, but it's
interesting,
scary.
yeah, what's interesting, I don't know if that's the word, but what's notable about him is that it really shows how the violence, the anti Semitism, the hatred of minorities and foreigners, and the anti abortion, anti feminist thinking is all together. Like this is, we've always said that as feminists, that don't think you can just be anti-abortion and avoid the rest of this very anti-democratic, hateful posture. It comes together.
Yeah, that's very true. The antis are antis. They are anti against everything what progressive societies are about, what they built as a way of moving the humanity forward. And they are all the denials. They want to destroy this this order, the direction of things in which we've been moving for last 30, 40 years. And
Mm-hmm.
so they want to destroy this. So we cannot allow this to happen, no matter how scary it is. We have to really
Keep fighting.
fight,
Yeah.
keep fighting.
Tell me in closing, what is your next, battle? Like, what is there anything you're hopeful for, in the next couple of months, things that you hope that will be achieved to help move democracy and the rule of law forward and women's rights forward in Poland? Because it is a bit bleak, right? We're feeling it too in the US.
I think it is very important that we have to work closer, even more close with the society, and try to explain that that we have to be in this fight together. Of course, we are feeling the responsibility that we should be delivering things we promised, but we cannot ignore the reality and political context, which which stops us from these successes. Therefore, I think it would be very important if the society would understand, I mean, especially women, that they have to continue
Mm.
being active. They cannot allow their disappointment just to turn back and say, "Oh, you haven't delivered, so we are not going to work with you, or we are not going to support you." We have to fight despite those difficulties, because if you are not together, if we don't understand in how complicated political situation we are, and internally, but also externally,
Right.
then we might have a big problem. So I think that there have to be more actions to talk to people, try to engage them, and to explain that they have to be also active on things, and also they should see how that these changes which are happening in the society, like growing anti human rights movements with all those populist trends, is dangerous for all of us, and we have to build strong alliance against that.
Are you worried about the security of Poland given the changing situation, the posture of the U.S. vis-a-vis European defense, and of course the Ukraine war continuing on your doorstep?
I must say that here, sitting next door to the war, because Poland is, we are, I mean, we have border with Ukraine, and also with Belarus, which works very closely with Russia. As we know, it's very difficult for us specifically, and many people do understand and are becoming more and more scary that this war of Putin against Ukraine, once they win Ukraine, which I hope will never happen, it would mean that we are next to next target of that. So that people who so far have not been even considering this option, I think more and more people understand that it's a real real threat. And actually, countries which are bordering with Russia are preparing for that, like Finland, for example. How a lot of efforts they put to prepare themselves for, hopefully not for some aggression, which hopefully will never happen, but still we that's also something. This context doesn't also help us to focus enough on things we care so dearly about.
Yeah, it doesn't give you much room to do other things when you have to focus on issues of security at that level, and you feel abandoned by the U.S. In Europe. Yeah. Well, thank you, Wanda, for this sobering and lucid account of what's been going on in Poland. I'm really glad you're in Parliament with your colleagues and you're able to keep flying the flag and holding the torch for women's rights and feminism. I don't see the alternative to this. The rest is too dark and depressing to contemplate. We have to keep fighting for the democracy and human rights and women's rights and the rule of law, no?
Thank you, Françoise. Great talking to you. And of course, we have to keep fighting, and we will.
La luta continua.
Oui, c'est ça. La luta continua. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Françoise.